One, ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special, extremely special episode. I have a very important guest on my channel, and if you don't know who is that, then I would say you better to probably not dealing with this face at all. Just keep with Fiat because this is the person who is very important and knows a lot. Basically, one of the most, I guess, recognizable people in terms of like knowing fundamental things and macro perspective on cryptosphere. So Murad Mahmudov and his opinion about the space and where we are going, where we are now. So we have like few very interesting, I think, hot questions to discuss. So without further ado, we will jump to it. But first, maybe Murat would like to tell about his background, like a couple of words, what he did. Hi, first of all.
Hello, Crypto Hamster. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a
My
pleasure
pleasure.
to be here.
Absolutely.
Um,
Now,
I
honor is
guess
mine.
I guess if that's useful, I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself, and then
Yeah,
kind
go
of
ahead.
more about what I do. Essentially, I'm originally from Azerbaijan. Um, went to study in America for several years. While I was there, I also did an exchange in China, and that was right at kind of the peak of the previous bubble in 2013, 2014. My foreign friends in China were literally bringing physical Bitcoin into the country and selling it at a small premium to the local Chinese because a lot of the Chinese exchanges still didn't have a lot of liquidity back then. Some of them later ended up working at Bitfinex, others at Coinbase. But essentially, I was kind of very lucky to get exposed to the space relatively early. And it kind of was somewhat early to Ethereum as well, kind of early to mid 2016. Um, and kind of 2016, 2017, 2018 onwards got more and more involved in the space in various capacities. Obviously, as an investor, as a trader, advisor to a couple of startups, and kind of been writing a lot, speaking a lot, researching, etc. In early 2018, I kind of teamed up with my current business partners, Willie Wu and David Puyel. And in early 2019, we launched kind of a small cryptocurrency, actively traded cryptocurrency fund.
Yeah, kill it, man.
Yeah, and essentially that's what we are doing these days, just actively managing a portfolio of cryptocurrencies, mostly Bitcoin, a couple of others too. But essentially,
Okay.
we are kind of active traders, active analysts, and we internally have a big focus on-chain analytics also. That's kind of a high-level overview.
Right, right. So, but speaking about your fund, what's the like the sizes, if you can tell about it, and like who is the participants? Maybe like investors, like big whales, or just like very narrow range of people around you, like inner circle.
So we launched with 20.5 million, and
Okay.
it's a lot of them. A lot of the investors are high net worth individuals, kind of large cryptocurrency market participants, a couple of other fund managers, some traditional VCs, etc. It's a pretty wide mix.
Okay. So, but you didn't spend like 10% of the amount of this amount already for cocaine and horse and casinos, right? It's still everything is there, right?
No, not yet.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Not yet,
yeah.
yet. Okay. All right. Let's go with some interesting stuff. So, starting with the short-term evaluation. If you don't know, guys, that then Murat actually has a bit of the bearish view on the current situation with the correction which we have from $14,000 to whatever it was, like $9,000, and I think he still believes that we are about to go even lower, like whatever, 8, 7. So what's your stance on that? What do you think, and why?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty bearish right now. I think we will see 8,000s, perhaps even high 7,000s, somewhere in that range. The reason being, kind of, it's a mix of kind of traditional TA and some of the on-chain stuff we'll look at. But essentially, a lot of the medium-term indicators, in my opinion, are showing signs of waning momentum. And I think that we already had a sizable run-up already, over 340% since the bottom. And we had something similar in 2017, in late 2015 as well. I generally think a market needs to take a little bit of a breather. I think we're going to go down a little bit and then sideways for 2, 3, 4 months. We kind of need to rebuild that energy, rebuild a new foundation for a continued move up. I mean, I, as bullish as I am on Bitcoin long term, I don't think it can continue to go logarithmically upwards just month after month after month. It needs a little bit of a breather. And if you study particularly interesting time frames like 3-day, 5-day, 1 week, 2 week, 11-day, 15-day type charts, I think almost every single oscillator that you can find, for what it's worth, at least relative to similar situations in Bitcoin's history, I think we need a little bit of a reset to find kind of more space to the upside later.
Okay, but I guess you still have like partial position, long position, despite of that statements, because you may think that we actually will not go that far lower. Like, do you hedge your condition in the market right now?
Right now, I'm in a mix of cash and hedged physical Bitcoin exposure. So really pretty neutral right now.
Okay, very good. Well, that's pretty fair. I think that many people actually think pretty much in the same way. Like we were too fast, rising too fast, and maybe too far. We'll see. We'll see. I'm more bullish. I'm kind of perma-bullying right now. Anyway, but you're mentioning your long-term bullishness, and if people didn't listen your podcast with Anthony Pompliano, they probably don't know that you say that maybe within like 10, maybe 50 years, whatever it would be, nobody knows, one Bitcoin may cost not $10 million or maybe even more. So you're serious about it, right?
Yeah, I think within my lifetime, I think Bitcoin will become the biggest form of money in the world. I still believe that.
But the point is, like, the people at least which with which I talk about the highest evaluation of the price, most of them, like I don't know, 99% of them, they think that it's still a speculative asset, and the only one reason for the price going higher is just like people trying to pump it and then sell it eventually. So, but you think that it's fundamentally a new asset which would like probably change, like have a new start a new era in economics, in finances, and everything. So, what's your like major reason to think about it? To think that way?
I think simply, I view everything in life as a product, including money. So money, I think, is a product as well. I think generally, I believe that free markets and competitive, kind of competitive forms of organization produce superior products to those that are kind of monopolized or ordained by the government. And I think for the first time ever, I think like shampoos and burgers and everything else has been under kind of competitive capitalistic regimes, but money has not. I think for over 100 years, essentially every country has their own local monopoly on money. And for the first time ever, you have a decentralized good that's competing against government currencies. Now, it's still very small, and most people aren't looking at it that way. But I think kind of every month, every year that Bitcoin survives, there's more and more probabilities that it will kind of be playing that role. If you look at Bitcoin, I think it's a 10x improvement over our current forms of money, predominantly because of three things. Most importantly, uninflatability, but also the other two important things are unseizability and uncensorability of transactions. Those are really the three biggest value propositions here. But really, to me, and I think what the biggest value driver will be, is the fact that nobody can print additional units. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, I think more and more people around the world and more organizations and wealthy people and even really, I think some governments themselves around the world, they will start moving to Bitcoin because it offers stronger guarantees than fiat currencies, even the best ones. And really, right now, essentially all the central banks around the world are in a fast competition to devalue their currencies as much as possible. Really,
Right.
I think this kind of politicization of money will lead more and more people to find themselves owning some apolitical money like Bitcoin. And really, I think to me, it's quite inevitable, and it's really kind of this black hole of energy that will just be absorbing other financial assets.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. Actually, I'm pretty much in the same along the same line in terms of thinking about these issues. But I have to play kind of devil's advocate right now because we need to have a fire up conversation. Actually, when you're talking about this, there are a lot of questions which could be arised, and people, well, opponents will probably would ask those questions. And I have a few, but you mentioned, first of all, you mentioned decentralization. I think it's one of the key points which people still don't address in a rigorous manner. Like, what's your point of what's your view on the fact that, first of all, mining is pretty centralized. Second, the fact that the practical development of the code and decision making is in a very narrow circle of people who actually know what is happening there and able to do such development. So those two things. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin's history has proven that it's not the miners who decide kind of on the future of Bitcoin, but rather um, the people who run the full nodes, or rather kind of the users of the system. And I think that what we saw in 2017 with Segwit 2x and with kind of the block size debate has proven that eventually the miners, they have to submit to the desires of the users, really, because at the end of the day, it's really the users, the hodlers, and the full nodes that are kind of decide on the future of the system. So really, it is not the miners that kind of make the large decisions, and the history has proven that. Really, the way I see miners, they're essentially service providers to the network that are getting paid a fee for their service. I like to think of them as bodyguard slash accountant hybrids, right? Those are kind of the two services that they perform. They perform the service of security and really transaction ordering, and they get a small fee kind of in exchange for that. And I think kind of as time goes on, especially with the halvings, really their effect not just only on kind of the software development side of Bitcoin, but also kind of the price of Bitcoin. They will be sort of quote unquote dumping less and less percentage of the supply onto the market continuously. So really, I think with time, their direct influence on the network will be growing less and less, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I would answer that question.
How about the decision making, the development of the code, and the knowledge concentration within the certain narrow range of people?
Yeah, so kind of if you look at Bitcoin, there is roughly 50 kind of active developers. Kind of, I would say 15 to 20 of them are particularly active. Really, at the end of the day, this is an open source project.
Right.
Yes, of course, some people have more influence than others, but most of the biggest ones have kind of proven their commitment through time. But Bitcoin doesn't do hard forks. It really focuses on soft forks, and that way the user doesn't have to update to any kind of new updates or new features, and their system and their full nodes can actually keep functioning no matter kind of what gets added to the system recently. And I think that's really important and really powerful for self-sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, again, I agree on most of the things in that. So, okay, speaking about the Bitcoin for the future, like you actually say that it may be like replacing fiat or something like that. Here is the thing, which kind of concerns me a little bit too, but I guess that you will find a best answer for that, and I will not be concerned anymore. So, in terms of the benefit for the economy, it could be a store of value right now, right? So we can't say that we can just pay with Bitcoin, but at least as a function of storing store of value, it is reasonable. So, but with the current economical conditions, as opposed to, let's say, bonds or stocks, it doesn't provide any revenue, pretty much the same as gold. But in this way, as soon as Bitcoin price will reach to certain stagnation level, like whatever, $10 million or something, how it would be, what would be the benefit for Bitcoin as an investment class, as it's already reached its certain, it's like fiat, right? It
Well,
would be
it
like,
would be so. I believe that, like right now, roughly the best kind of fiat still loses 2 to 3% of its purchasing power per year.
right.
The way I see it, very roughly, I think because of Bitcoin's fixed supply and assuming that fixed supply stays intact, um,
Mm-hmm.
essentially at final equilibrium, Bitcoin's purchasing power would roughly grow with the speed of the economy. So if the global economy grows at 1% per year, kind of the purchasing power of money would roughly grow at that same pace as well. And that pace would diminish every year, similarly to the pace of the economy as well. Obviously, as we move into kind of further decades and centuries, the world will be growing at a slower pace, right? But
Yeah.
I think that its purpose will essentially be a savings vehicle. It will be similar to dollars today, but better. It will be similar to gold in the late 19th century, but even better than that as well, in my opinion.
Okay, you actually answered the second question which I had about the inflationary and deflationary assets. So yeah, I'll dismiss that. It's a good point. Good point. So you are known as the so-called Bitcoin maximalist, right? So can you say that you are still?
Um, so
No, not really.
I Bitcoin is my biggest holding. I hold some Decred also. I think it's quite undervalued and quite
Okay,
cool. But those are really the only two that I hold.
that is what I was going to ask you because I know that you are a Decred holder and Schiller. So what's the so cool about Decred? Just a couple of words.
Um, I really
And
like
everybody will buy that after that.
yeah, I really like their hybrid consensus model.
Okay.
Hybrid proof of work, proof of stake is kind of adds a lot of synergies and really makes kind of iteration, adaptation, governance of the system much quicker. And it's also really secure. So I just really like the way that kind of the Decred social system is designed. I think it's really intelligent.
So you think it's like, well, since you have it as the biggest holding, as you said, among the all other altcoins, basically you put it in the first place among the rest. So it's like Bitcoin and Decred, and the rest is like garbage, or maybe
Yes,
some.
yes, I think I don't think that Decred is going to displace Bitcoin, but I
Yeah,
think
sure.
it can grow, it can displace Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, etc.
Wow, wow, that's pretty bold. Like most of it. Well, I think that the majority of people would say that, oh, come on, there are like nice, fundamentally made altcoins which can sort of play in a certain role in the future, decentralized systems and everything. Like they can have certain ways of implementation and cover some issues. But you're pretty bold. Okay, okay. I would name any of the altcoins not to trigger people, so because you will criticize those altcoins and people will not be happy about it. Um,
Hmm.
Speaking about altcoins, now they're dumping hard for like entire already year and a half, I guess, and especially with respect to Bitcoin. So many people are waiting for the alt season, right? And what's your view on that? When we will see the alt season? Maybe this year, maybe next year, or ever, or will they go to zero except Decred?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see an Altseason anytime soon. Maybe next year, and I
Next
don't
year?
think it's going to be an Altseason. Maybe like a 3 or 4 week type small alt cycle. But
Oh,
really,
really?
something that you saw in December, January of 2017, 2018. I don't think that's going to happen again.
Okay. Well, the point is, like, I don't know, my personal feeling that we didn't have the biggest pump for Bitcoin yet. I mean, we had, of course, in terms of the increment, we have like a lot of percentage growth, but in terms of the absolute capital and capitalization of Bitcoin, we didn't have the biggest pump. And when it will happen, probably the people outside of the space will figure this out, and taxi drivers and all the meme people will start to buy Bitcoin and talk about it, and capital from those people will be massive. And usually, in such cases, the same way as it happened in 2017, a lot of people are actually going with a kind of dark side of this business and buy altcoins instead of Bitcoin, because it's easier to get rich and quick and so on. But wouldn't you think that when Bitcoin will start to pump even harder than before, and the mass awareness will become absolutely massive already, then the effect on altcoins will be even stronger than before?
Yeah, I think there will be periods where altcoins perform quite well of the cycle as kind of the retail people come in.
Yeah.
But generally, I think one of my sub-theses for the space is that the median IQ of an average crypto participant will be improving. And I think instead of having an alt season where everything pumps, fewer and fewer alts will survive.
Okay. Well, I guess that we don't have much time left. So actually, I have one personal question for you. And you may not answer if you don't want to. On your Twitter account, you have the username Must Stop Murad. Is that right?
Yes.
I've never heard your saying about why it is so. Why did you pick this name?
It's just a kind of a funny kind of a semi-humorous name, as in I am dangerous, so kind of dangerous for society, so you should
I
stop
guess
me.
you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, do you have any? Oh, by the way, there's one more question. Sorry for keeping you that long, but anyway,
No problem.
okay. One of the subscribers on my Telegram chat asked, he thinks that you were stating that probably Bitcoin price will go maybe to 300, 350 days moving average as an ultimate bottom. If we would go like below $3,000, at least you were saying that in the beginning of this year. So do you still think that this is a possibility, or this will never happen?
No,
No?
that was wrong. I think
That was wrong. Oh,
that's
wow.
invalidated now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it wasn't wrong. I would say it was like a really fair chance to happen, but I mean, it just probably will not happen with certain conditions we have now.
Yeah, yeah. I think essentially that scenario I'm not following anymore at all.
Okay, okay, that's good. Then we can like breathe out. Whew, that's not happening. Okay, so do you have anything to end up the
Yeah,
video? Like
yeah.
all about?
I don't think Bitcoin will go below 7,700.
Okay, fair enough. But do you actually realize that most of the people out there on Twitter, YouTube, whatever social media you will touch, pretty much say the same thing? Like if Bitcoin will go to 7,500 or even Bitcoin will go to 8,000, we'll feel our backs to 100%, something like this.
Yeah, so everybody says that they want to buy it like 84, 8,500, right? So I
Yeah.
think because of that, there's only two scenarios, right? I think you
Go deeper
either
or not.
there's only two scenarios. Either 9.1 was the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
so that was it,
Exactly.
or we go lower to like 7.5, etc. That's kind of the two. That's the really two possibilities here. It's quite binary. It's quite polarized right now.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. Okay, so can we actually expose your location right now, where you are, or it's a top secret thing?
Let's just say I'm in Eastern Europe.
Oh yeah, okay. Because like I'm sure people will watch that from the same place which you are now, and they would like to walk on the street and look for you and make a selfie if you if they'll find you. Okay, so Murat is somewhere in the Eastern Europe. So guys, if you are in Eastern Europe, let's go outside and check for Murat in the street. Okay, man, thank you very much for coming here. And if you'll have time once again, we always have a lot of fun time in crypto. always have corrections or crazy pumps, so I'll be happy to discuss them more. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys, we'll stop recording, and I guess I'll have a lot of fun with putting dubs on that, translating this into Russian. So Murat actually can speak Russian, but he said no, please do it by yourself. Okay, guys, thank you for watching, and let's hope that Murat will appear again on our channel. Goodbye, guys.